Hello and welcome to Perspective. I am Jawad Tehami, and today the topic of discussion in Perspective is going to be the India's irresponsible statements and a befitting response from Pakistan's side. And for that, an esteemed panel of guests is joining me today. But before we delve deeper into that topic, there is an unfortunate incident that has happened in the scenic valley of Murree and the adjacent areas of Galyat. Over 4 to 6 feet of snow was recorded by the Met Department. There were earlier warnings by the Met Department as well as the administration and ministers as well. They were forbidding the public to go to visit these areas because of a looming snowstorm, and that is exactly what happened. Unfortunate incident, gut-wrenching incident. So far, the rescue says 22 people, including 8 of a single family, have died. They have succumbed literally to the suffocation because they were stranded in their cars for days just because of a lot of heavy snowfall that took place over there. However, Prime Minister Imran Khan has taken the notice of this, but he at the same time also said that the people ignored early weather warnings, and that holds the public in general also responsible, an important point to be discussed as well. And on the other hand, the chairman of the National Disaster Management Authority, Lieutenant General Akhtar Nawaz, is of the view that the food and the shelter is also being provided to the people who were stranded over there. A lot of people have already been rescued. The relief and the rescue operations are still underway. The army soldiers are helping out people who have been stranded over there. Murree and Galyat, this gut-wrenching incident happened over there, and Chief Minister Punjab has also taken notice of this. But it is very pertinent to mention over here that already we saw the Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid giving the warning to the general public, because he said that over 1 lakh vehicles had entered that region and people should avoid, particularly in these days when there is a snowstorm warning. Let's bring in our guest, Mr. Javed Rana, who is a journalist, who is joining me in the studio, and Dr. Waleed Rasool, who is a Kashmir affairs expert. He will be joining me on Skype, and Mr. Javed Siddiqui, who is an analyst, who will be joining me on the phone line. So, Mr. Rana, I'll begin the discussion with you. It's a very gut-wrenching incident that happened over there. Despite repeated warnings by the government and the associated departments, public went over there to enjoy that snowfall, but later on that turned into a tragedy. What do you have to say about that?
I don't know whether or not we have a system where from the toll plaza, when they knew it that over 100,000 vehicles have gone into Murree in a very bad weather conditions, why the administration did not block the remaining cars from entering into Murree. I think this is a big question mark. Administratively, it's a failure, and the Prime Minister has rightly ordered an inquiry. I think from now onwards, any venue which is a resort where there is a greater possibility of snowfall, I think administration from now onwards need to be conscious, and they need to come up with a very comprehensive plan on how to handle it. But at the same time, when we talk about the public, people knew it, and they did not take it serious because they thought that this is a kind of a chance they can enjoy. But nobody actually knew that there could be snowfall at this scale, maybe up to 6 feet, up 4 feet. Now, tragically, these cars, they were wrapped up by the snows. They were choked. The carbon monoxide, it caused the deaths in most of the cases. People were not frozen to death. It was misreported by many news channels. I think it could have taken time. But again, this is a very tragic story, but we have also have to understand that there are some unconfirmed reports suggesting that perhaps that some of the hotel owners who are politically well connected, they use their influence onto the administration to allow the people to continue entering into the Murree. If that is the case, it's a criminal. if that is the
Okay,
case.
let me take this point to Mr. Siddiqui. Mr. Siddiqui, you have just heard over 22 people have so far been reportedly declared dead by the rescue, and this gut-wrenching incident happened despite repeated warnings by the officials. People went over there in large numbers. There are two different voices coming. One has to say that it was an administrative failure. On the other hand, we consider it the responsibility of the general public to give heed to what the officials have to say regarding an unusual situation.
Basically, I think the responsibility lies both on general public as well as the administration. I think the administration should have taken note of the fact that a huge number of cars have entered into Murree, which is a small place, a small tourist resort. There are no parking plazas, no parking facilities for thousands of cars to be parked. So when the snow fell and it took a very ugly situation, ugly turn, and became, the roads were blocked and choked. This was impossible for such a big number of cars to move on. And there were no steps taken by the administration. The slow clearing machinery, the snow plowers, and the tractors, etc. Sorry, they were not there to clean up the road. So the traffic became choked, and people had to live in the cars for hours together. And when the night fell, the temperatures also fell below zero, and that caused the tragedy. And most of the people who have died, they died in their cars because they had no other place to take shelter but in their cars. And how long they could exist there without food, without oxygen, without heating arrangement. So that is one reason the administration was totally a failure in this regard. The second responsibility lies on people, because when they know that snow could become dangerous, and it happens elsewhere in the world also, they should have abstained from entering into Murree in such a large number. And I think that caused this tragedy, and the people should learn lessons. But at the same time, I think the major responsibility lies on the administration.
Mr. Siddiq, your point is well taken, and for now, our hearts go with the affected families and the people who have lost their lives in this tragic incident. The responsibility lies not only with the administration, but also with the general public as well. And now, going back to the main topic of today, let me just give you an overview of what exactly has happened in the last couple of days. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi invited the Indian side to participate in the upcoming summit of the OIC, the 19th summit, which was supposed to happen back in 2016 in Pakistan, but India pulled out by hurling concocted allegations on Pakistan that it had its alleged role in the Uri incident. But Pakistan repeatedly asked for concrete evidence, but India came up with nothing. So this is happening at a time when the world is going for regional connectivity and the shared prosperity. But this is the regional bloc of SAARC, the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation, seems to go dysfunctional because of the hostile activities of India. Recently, when Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi invited India to participate in this upcoming summit that is to be held in Pakistan, the Indian External Affairs Ministry spokesman said that there is no consensus that India might participate in this. And he also went on to say that Kashmir remains to be the inalienable and integral part of India. Again, a befitting response by Pakistan's Foreign Office, and the Foreign Office spokesperson said that it is because of the Indian myopic attitude that the regional bloc, the potential that it has got, that has become hostage. So I'll start the discussion with you, Mr. Rana. So this provocative statement again seems to be very irresponsible. This is not the first time that Indian officials are given such statements, despite a posturing by Pakistan, the extension of a hand of friendship towards India that we saw right from the outset when Premier Imran Khan came, and in his victory speech he extended that warmth towards India, but in response we got the hostility.
I think this is a repeated allegations. People in Pakistan got fed up hearing the same allegations time and again, that there is a alleged so-called support to the militants inside Indian disputed Kashmir region. I don't understand. India at this particular point of time needed Pakistan's help. At least there could have been some semblance of normalcy in the context that the India was having a very tough time after merging its own Kashmir part into the Indian Union, and that was a very controversial decision. It was in violation of the UN Security Council resolutions, and Pakistan had suspended the trade relations, the diplomatic relations had downgraded, and in that context, India was desperate to manage a relationship with Pakistan at some scale. But now this was an opportunity. And once again, they have repeated of what they have been doing over the last couple of years. Since 2014, we have not seen the scheduling of SAARC conference. And I think this is the high time that Pakistan needs to gather other friends in the region. And so far, the consensus, these countries have been, SAARC countries have been going by the consensus. But now it's the high time to change that draft of the constitution of the region countries, and to go by the majority votes, because India has been hijacking this very important forum for last 6-7 years. So that means in years to come, the situation is unlikely to change, particularly as long as Prime Minister Modi is there, because he understands the language of violence, because his party, as a matter of fact, these are the kind of stuff which is ignored by the people. The biggest terrorist organization is in India.
Let me take this very point, because you are of the view that India over the last 6 to 7 years has hijacked this regional bloc. Dr. Waleed Rasool is with me, Kashmir Affairs expert. Dr. Rasool, thank you for your time at Perspective. How do you see this invitation by Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi that he invited India to participate in the upcoming moot of the OIC?
Thank you, sir, for giving me a little space to speak. Spade a spade. India has a legacy upon which she is banking upon, particularly when Modi returned in the power. The fascism and her hegemonic style is in rising. I will not quote anybody from Pakistan, but I am quoting the ex-judge of the Indian Supreme Court, who says there are 4 indicators when any state changes as a fascist and she behaves like a fascist state. Her hegemonic style is carried by that they are plugging any and every peaceful route. For example, mediation, arbitration, third-party involvement, and also the bilateral route. They have been tagging and dubbed that Kashmir is a bilateral issue as per Shimla Agreement. And now, when there is any regional arrangement like SAARC, they have lot of things to conceal. She is simply concealing the things and behaving in the blame game. Now, 4 indicators had been suggested by ex-Supreme Court of the India that when anybody is promoting himself as an avatar, this is a first fascist style, same was done by Hitler in 1940, before 1947. When anybody is using the religious as a religion card in the election, same was done by the Hitler. Number 3, does the government use the power to silence all sane voices, and now OIC is one of those platforms which can have bridged some gap between Pakistan and India. Now, this is a lesson for those community who are serious with their sovereignty. What India did in 5th August 2019 was a heinous crime as per international law. When you are changing the occupational status to the annexed one. And recently you have seen that Foreign Office of the Pakistan have issued a dossier with concrete prima facie evidence which is totally and entirely relied upon that primary data which has been collected from Indian occupied Kashmir. I'm saying you, sir, she
This
has
is
lost
very
the
important
Kashmir. Now
thing
she is
that you have
occupying.
shared
She
with
is
us, Dr.
occupying.
Rasool. I'd like to take this point to Mr. Siddique. How do you see the invitation forwarded by Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, and again hostility as ever we saw from the Indian side? Do you think the other members of the OIC should play their role in order to impress upon India that it is not the platform for the bilateral engagement, rather it is for the multilateral engagement, and other members have also got the stakes in it?
I think that's true. Ever since the inception of SARC, Indians' attitude has been very nihilistic, and they didn't allow this important regional platform to function in the larger interests of the people of South Asia. All the 7 countries, who are the members of SARC, they have tried their best to make it functional, to deliver, and to produce positive results. The basic objective of this organization was to basically reduce poverty, to increase cooperation in various sectors, particularly education, culture, and also connectivity. The connectivity among the states, and increase the volume of trade among the SAARC countries. And the regional platforms and the regional organizations throughout the world are functioning very well. They are producing tangible results. Unfortunately, the Indian negative attitude has reduced this platform, this very important platform, a regional organization, into a dysfunctional entity. That's very unfortunate, and I think Pakistan has been making positive efforts to make it functional and to make it deliver the desired objectives. But unfortunately, the Indian attitude has made it redundant. Now, the members of the South Asian countries, the SAARC, should also consider as to how long they can remain under the negative shadow of India and the nihilistic policies of India. India has always raised this bogey of terrorism and Pakistan's interference in Indian affairs and Pakistan's interference in the occupied Kashmir. And the world knows that this is a lame excuse to basically render this important regional organization into a dysfunctional organization. So I think Pakistan's position is very strong. Pakistan has invited India, and India now stands exposed because it does not want to play a positive role in making this organization, SAARC, a functional organization. That's sad. And I think...
Mr. Siddique, let me take this point to Mr. Rana. Mr. Rana, when we talk about the other member states, they have got the stakes and interest in this regional bloc as well. But we have seen in the recent past, there was aggressive posturing by Indian side towards other regional countries, especially when we talk about that border dispute with Nepal and aggressive posturing towards Bangladesh. So do you think these members have got that grit in order to impress upon India that India should let this regional bloc work properly and efficiently?
I think Pakistan should very effectively lobby among these regional countries. and in order to reactivate this forum. The SAARC forum is extremely important, particularly for the bilateral trades, multilateral trades on through different tools and forums. I think again at the heart of the problem would be on how to change the very constitution of the SAARC, because it goes by the consensus, and if it goes by the majority votes, only then this forum can be reactivated. That means that Pakistan could possibly manage to make it functional, and now we have Afghanistan on our side. It wasn't there in the past, and also very importantly, I think there is also change of heart in Bangladesh. They have their own border troubles, other issues with India. And but again, first they use Bangladesh against Pakistan, but now I don't think they can do it. So there is a change scenario, and Pakistan must benefit of that scenario, because I don't expect that in years to come, India would change its mind. You see, they have been raising this bogey of the terrorism, because I think Pakistan has also been raising this Kashmir issue on SAARC. It is not a bilateral issue in a broader picture, because if Kashmir is not resolved, it's a nuclear flashpoint. That means if, God forbid, if there's a conventional war, it can move into a nuclear war. Kashmir is a nuclear flashpoint. That means it can spread to the entire region. So in that context, Pakistan has been raising this issue on SAARC forum, something India doesn't feel comfortable with, and India knows that Pakistan would raise it again. It would highlight the human rights abuses in Kashmir, the way it has been conducting.
But does it, Mr. Rana, does it serve Indian purpose? Because there are other platforms internationally over which Pakistan has consistently raised this issue, particularly after the revocation of Article 370. It was the United Nations Security Council. After many decades, it was discussed over there, and not once but twice. But then we saw the European Parliament as well, the British Parliament. Even there were mediation offers by former President Donald Trump. So it is not the only international or regional platform where Pakistan can raise a voice for innocent Kashmiris. So does it serve the purpose of Indians?
I think Pakistan has been raising Kashmiri's voice on different international forums. Everybody sympathizes with Pakistan and Kashmiris, but at the end of the day, the governments in the West, particularly, they don't come up with the kind of the policy that is required to pressurize India into accepting the genuine demands of Kashmiri people of their right of self-determination. Reason being is the world is moved by hard geostrategic, political and economic realities. India is a big market for them. And I don't think any country is going to help Pakistan. And now if you talk to the Kashmiri, many would tell you that there is no template on how to get freedom. And that template is what Taliban has done with the US-led NATO. I think that is a very dangerous scenario which is building up in Indian Kashmir. And
so let me take this very important point to Dr. Rasool. The situation over the past couple of years, since the revocation of Article 370, hasn't much changed. And now we see that thing brewing up over there. In Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, a complete curfew and communication blackdown, complete violation of human rights. Despite repeated calls by Pakistan on the international level, there was just lip service by the international community, and the situation happens to be same, rather worsening with every single passing day. That's why Prime Minister Imran Khan in his UNGA address said that it was the test of international community's conscience.
Recently there was a Russell's tribunal in Bosnia, and the 6 judges of the International Court of Justice were having produced a resolution about the human rights crisis and the genocide in Kashmir. Number one. Number two, when you are raising the degree of mayhem against innocent people, the canvas of the resistance increases. It is a natural law. And I have wrote a paper on it, resistance, resilience and fear factor. And number 3, Kashmiris are now resilient enough because they know that India is occupying the land and they have no interest with the masses. It is an internal dynamics of the Kashmir issue. And they are in pressure cooker since 5th August 2019, and it will burst upon at any time. But the interesting question will be for the thinkers, for the policymakers, and the policy drivers. What is our preparation and the homework? And number three, it is having some regional dimension also. When we are talking about the compulsions of geopolitics, globalization, and the connectivity, now there is a one regional driver who is in the race of the global power, that is China. The friction between China and India is itself an another actor which is having the role in the Kashmir context. And number fourth, United Nations resolution is bestow the legitimacy to the Kashmir cause. Therefore, Kashmir is an international armed conflict as per international law. So, Pakistan as an global actor has to do something more than moral, diplomatic, and political one.
Dr. Rasool, I'll move to Mr. Siddique. Mr. Siddique, you just heard the two participants. Dr. Rasool is of the view it's just like a pressure cooker in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It might burst at any time. And that is exactly the warning Pakistani officials, including the Prime Minister, had been giving to the world community. The UN has got resolutions passed on a free and impartial plebiscite in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. But India doesn't allow that one to happen. And interestingly, India was itself that went to the United Nations. So why do you think United Nations couldn't execute its authority over there?
Well, there are historic reasons. I think the world is more interested, and particularly the big powers, the permanent members of Security Council, the P5, they are interested in promoting their own interests. And everybody knows that India is a huge market for these big countries, P5 countries. And they look at India from that economic perspective. They do not look at India's policies in Kashmir as policies of human interest or a violation of human rights. They think that India is a big market and they have their interests, and that's why they support it. Pakistan has consistently raised this issue in the General Assembly and also in the Security Council. Only recently, after the annexation of occupied Kashmir to Indian Union, the August 5 incident, August 5 decision of the Indian government has been rejected by Pakistan, and Pakistan has raised this issue with the connivance of and help of China at the Security Council. And I think, again, the P5, some of the P5 members, they went for India and they didn't support the Pakistani stance. And that is the tragedy. And I think the Kashmiri people, they need to be saluted for the resilience and the resistance that they have shown against the Indian aggression and Indians, oppression in Indian-held Kashmir. And for the last 2 years, the Kashmiris are suffering at the hands of India. And the human rights organizations, the UN Human Rights Council has also condemned this, and they have raised their voice. So other countries, even the European Union, they have come out with a condemnation of India's policy in Indian-held Kashmir. But unfortunately, the pressure is not being generated on India, enough pressure so that it changes its policy towards the occupied Kashmir. But the Kashmiris are struggling. They are actually struggling through their blood and sweat. And probably they are not going to accept this illegal occupation of India. And precisely for this reason, India is avoiding this SAARC summit also, because it thinks that Pakistan could raise the issue through the context of, or in the context of human rights violations. That is why India is scared and it doesn't want this meeting to be held. And Pakistan has raised this issue at the SAARC forum, many a time in the past. And that actually bothers India, that troubles India. So that is why they are not allowing this entity, the SARC, to function. And additionally, Indians' hegemonic attitude and policies in this region have actually damaged the whole population of South Asia tremendously. India is not interested in the improvement of the economic lot of the people of this region. Otherwise, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, they could get together and actually make this organization work for the benefit
Do you
of the
think?
people.
Do you think after the failure of the United Nations to implement its resolutions on Kashmir, do you think it could be an alternate? SARC could be an alternate for Pakistan or for making the Kashmiris turn their wishes into reality of their right to self-determination, because United Nations through its Security Council has got that authoritative power. But do you think there is any authority that rests with SARC that it could also pass such a resolution and get something implemented here? That's why you think India is wary of this fact?
That's one reason, and that is one reason, no doubt. And I think Pakistan can, move, and Pakistan can lobby with the regional countries so that they are able to exert pressure on India to basically make this organization functional and agree to it, and also to put an end to the gross human rights violation in occupied Kashmir. And they are also concerned. These regional countries are also concerned because I have been attending this SARC summit, 5 of 6 SARC summits I've attended, and all the regional countries, they want SARC to play its role in the resolution of Kashmir issue, because these countries think that unless the issue of Kashmir is resolved, the shadow of Pakistan-India relations will continue to make this organization dysfunctional. So they want that immediately. There should be an immediate resolution of the occupied Kashmir, and the Pakistan and India should.
You just mentioned that you have attended many SARC meetings, and all the members except India have raised this issue that until and unless the Kashmir dispute is not resolved as per the UN resolutions, and there won't be peace and stability in this region. So was there anything like that as a message of concern conveyed from such members to India?
They have been, urging India basically to sit down with Pakistan and resolve the issue of Kashmir so that this regional organization of SARC should start functioning, should start delivering like other organizations, ASEAN and SCO, and so many other organizations are functioning very well. And they are making huge efforts to basically better the lot of the people of their regions. And SARC can also play that role. But unfortunately, because of the contentious problem of Kashmir, which has been there on the UN Security Council agenda for the last 70 years, has not been able to be resolved because of the Indian intransigent attitude, because they have always, created impediments on the way to the resolution of this problem. And whenever this was raised...
At this point to Mr. Rana, what do you have to say about this? Do you think SARC has got that authoritative power in order to impress upon India when the United Nations seem to have completely failed in this regard?
I think since the SARC go by the consensus, and when it goes by the consensus, that obviously means that the SARC would never be able to pass any resolution in favor or against on the Kashmir dispute. I mean, this is how the constitution of the SARC has been drafted. So that is an unlikely scenario. But nonetheless, Pakistan has been raising this point time and again on this particular forum, highlighting the fact that the Kashmir is in fact no longer restricted to as a bilateral issue. It is becoming a multilateral issue because of the possible there is a possibility of a war, another war on Kashmir, and the fact that now both countries are have the nuclear weapons, which can possibly be used. So I think in that context, the SAARC countries have their own concerns. But on this forum, somehow or the other, there have not been, I don't recall any SAARC summit where any resolution was passed. Obviously, India would block it, and since the SAARC go by the consensus, that kind of scenario is unlikely until the majority countries they change the very draft of the constitution, where they will move by the majority votes. I think in a broader picture, this is a high time. Again, Pakistan create more forums. Pakistan can bring in China, which is in the east of Asia, and these.
Of course, India, Mr. Rani, India has got very troubled relations with China as well.
That is why I think this is also high time to create another forum where we can bring almost all countries of SAARC except for India, and can bring in China in it, and that would be very problematic for India, because China is economically is a big power, its militarily is a big power. China has its own territorial disputes like us with India, and I think in that scenario, Pakistan would be in a better position to raise a territorial dispute with India through any such foreseeable forum, because if the two countries have their territorial dispute with India, of course, then both China and Pakistan would be able to gather more and more supports from the regional countries, and India would come under more pressure. But again, the point that I made in my previous comment, for Kashmiri, now the template is Afghanistan. How people in Afghanistan, represented by the Taliban, they forced the eviction of the US-led NATO force from Afghanistan. That is a template. And the last point, very important point, in 1970s, there was a resolution by the UN's General Assembly which calls for all the such territories which are under the occupation by the occupying forces like India, they have the right of an armed struggle. So if there is a militancy inside the Kashmir, which is indigenous militancy, Pakistan should not have any apologetic reaction on this.
That's a very interesting thing. That's very interesting observation. That's why India tries to externalize the indigenous struggle of Kashmiris, and through its false and fake news propaganda against Pakistan.
You see, India is using its economic tools, its political influence in the Western countries, more particularly in the USA. It has a huge influence through its lobbies in the US, because of which all Pakistan's efforts, all Pakistan's lobbyings in the West, they have not been able to produce a tangible result.
So let's go to Dr. Rasool. Dr. Rasool, as you saw that there is a sort of a template that Mr. Rana is of the view that could be applied in the case of Kashmir, as we saw happening in Afghanistan, the internal resistance. But we have seen the sheer and sinister campaign by the Indian media all over the world to malign Pakistan and externalize the indigenous movement of the Kashmiris. How Pakistan can deal with this one?
Actually, recently we have carried a series of research works which was published by Institute of Strategic Studies to study the relationship between India with her neighbors in comparison to China with her neighbors. And there was one of my paper included in that. Number one. Number two, that when you are saying about the hegemony, when SAARC was hijacked by a power, and the neighboring countries of the SAARC, they know that Pakistan is only the balancer in the SAARC. SAARC can only move forward when Pakistan will balance it. Number three, there is already a friction between India and Nepal, India and Bhutan, India and Bangladesh on waters, and there are multiple issues of India with the Sri Lanka when they supported LTT and then withdrawn. So there is not a rosy picture of India which is being painted. I'm just quoting the BBC story of 13th November 2018 that there were 300,000 suicides of the Indian peasants in India. And he also quotes that there were more than 200 organizations demanding that they should be given little right. There is not a rosy
We are
picture
short of time. Very quickly, I want your comment on this last question. United Nations have failed. International community trying to build up a pressure on India. India doesn't give a heed to it. And then the mediation offers by the former president of the US, they were never accepted by the Indian side. Now, when we talk about SAARC, it tries to make it dysfunctional. Is there any hope? Is there any hope that the entire world community, or especially when we talk about the member states of SAARC, could they chalk out a strategy that can goad India in order to resolve Kashmir dispute in particular?
But I don't think that it is in the SAARC charter to devise such strategy. But since they have a friction of their own, that you can correlate that with Kashmir. But when you are asking about the question at Afghanistan, Afghanistan was supported by Russia, Afghanistan was supported by Iran, Afghanistan was supported by her neighboring countries like Pakistan, and Kashmir is not having a quantum of such support except the Pakistan one. So this is the mega difference.
This point, let me take this point to Mr. Siddique. What do you think? Is there any hope in future? Could there be enough pressure on India to resolve the dispute?
I think the main pressure will be from the resistance of the Kashmiris. The people of Kashmir have risen against the oppression and repression of the Indian occupying forces. That's the main source of the strength for the Kashmiris. And second factor is China, because China is neutralizing the evil effect and influence of India in the neighboring, in South Asian countries. China has developed very good relations, positive relations with other South Asian countries, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Nepal. And there's a huge connectivity between these countries and China. So China is basically neutralizing the Indian hegemonistic effect in these countries. And I think that's a positive sign. And if Pakistan and China together, they
think is trying to neutralize the hegemonic effects of India in this particular region. Mr. Rana, what do you think very quickly? Is there any hope in future?
I support what Javed Siddique have said. It's going to be in armed resistance inside Kashmir. And also, I think the chaotic scene we can force in India, the way they are killing Muslims every next day, I think that chaos would weaken the economy of the India, and sooner or later when India will break up from within, only then they would resolve Kashmir issue. International community is not going to rescue Kashmiris.
There are, of course, many other separatist movements going on in India as well, other than Kashmir. Mr. Javed Rana, journalist, joining me in the studio. Thank you very much for being here at Perspective, and Dr. Waleed Rasool, Kashmir affairs expert. He was joining me on Skype, and Mr. Javed Siddique, analyst, joining me on a phone line. Thank you, all of you gentlemen, for your time at Perspective. With this, we come to the end of today's Perspective. Until the next episode, keep watching PTV World. Till then, it's goodbye.